In 2025, the world's largest companies reportedly spent around $400 billion on capital expenditures to support AI development. Adjusted for inflation, that would be 9 Manhattan projects or 2 Apollo programs, all within just 1 year, and just on infrastructure alone. Put another way, last year, more money was set aside for data centers than was spent on building single family homes. And this number doesn't even include non public companies like Anthropic or OpenAI. They are harder to get reliable financial data on. This number also doesn't include any of the other costs like staffing, energy, security, or strategic acquisitions like podcasts. These numbers are also only for 2025, and recent announcements suggest spending this year will once again break new records. The borderline comical numbers being thrown around may not be surprising anymore, but it has been almost 4 years since ChatGPT first released. In that time, not a single one of these companies has figured out how to turn a profit, even with generous projections, even with accounting tricks. The exception has always been NVIDIA and the other hardware suppliers upstream of them. You've heard the analogy. This might be an unsustainable gold rush, but the hardware companies are selling the pickaxes and shovels. However, by following the numbers, some questions arise. Where are these shovels actually ending up? Companies promise record spending on data centers, yet reports indicate over half of the sites supposed to open this year are delayed or canceled outright. It's very difficult for both of those things to be true at the same time. Even ignoring how customers keep paying for this, there are logical paradoxes developing. These companies can't keep up with demand for new chips, and yet their inventories are growing. They depreciate hardware over 6 years, but claim next year's models render this year's obsolete. Then there's the question of how to power all of this. Nearly half of U.S. data centers planned for 2026 are expected to be delayed. Communities are pushing back. They don't want data centers in their backyards. 10 natural gas plants serving one single data center. Excess demand soaked up by data centers. We never said we were going to invest $100 billion in one realm. We will ask the generally intelligent system to figure out a return for you. Okay, whether we like it or not, NVIDIA is holding up the world. Market cap, profit, reinvestment, it feeds the industry that feeds it. As the most analyzed company in financial history, a YouTube video won't unearth a secret everyone missed. But there are 3 big questions about NVIDIA's place in the market worth understanding, because any significant change in its price has implications for the entire economy. The first big question: where are all these chips actually going? Jensen Huang claimed the company shipped around 10 gigawatts of GPUs in 2025 alone. Quick math suggests this might be a slight overestimation, but it's in the right ballpark. That figure came from an interview announcing a $100 billion partnership with OpenAI to help them build 10 gigawatts of compute, roughly NVIDIA's entire annual output. This didn't help the accusations of circular dealing, but that's not the problem here. The problem is the estimate from Goldman Sachs. There are only about 7.7 gigawatts of AI data centers operating on the entire planet. There are new data centers under construction, but not nearly as many as the announcements suggest. On-the-ground research from Sightline Climate confirms suspicions from journalist Ed Citron. Construction isn't nearly as far along as press releases claim. Of the 21.5 gigawatts announced before 2027, only 6.3 gigawatts are actively under construction, and even that sounds better than reality. Under construction could mean final fit-out or just a foundation poured. Even as we made this video, Bloomberg reported Oracle and OpenAI's flagship Stargate Center in Abilene, Texas, shelved its expansion plans. Some numbers are hard to verify. Private companies don't provide public accounts. Public companies mix AI operations with the rest of the business. But the point remains, unless every data center on Earth replaced its cards every 14 months, NVIDIA is oversupplying the real market. Which sounds bad, but it gets worse. Even if we assume every verifiable data center goes online in 8 months and upgrades hardware this year, it's not simple addition. There's no hard industry standard. Measuring data centers in megawatts typically includes the entire input, not just energy going to GPUs. There's networking, cooling, storage, overhead. According to the International Energy Agency, only 46 to 65% of energy goes to compute. So, even with generous estimates, there isn't enough room to cram 10 gigawatts of GPUs into. Either Jensen Huang overestimated production, or the chips are ending up somewhere analysts can't see. And that's just the first problem. One thing becomes confusing when reading headlines about data centers. Why are they measured in gigawatts? A watt is a measure of power, and not all watts are created equal in computing. A Mac Mini draws 15 watts. It destroys my old 150-watt gaming computer in most tasks. I'm not bringing this up to rant about RAM costs. It relates to the second major problem facing NVIDIA, the power limitation. According to industry analysis, the biggest bottleneck is not advanced computer chips. It's getting the electrical infrastructure to support them. Power has become the real-world constraint. That's why projects are compared like FPS and Cyberpunk. In a typical data center, transformers and power suppliers are less than 10% of build cost, but nothing happens until those components are in place. The price of a transformer has more than doubled in 4 years. Supply struggles to keep up. This demand is on top of regular energy grids for households and businesses. It hasn't helped that components come from China, South Korea, Mexico, and Canada. Tariff disruptions make navigating harder. Because supply is so limited, companies buy everything they can as soon as they can, even if it takes a long time to use it. If NVIDIA says the latest batch of chips is ready, companies are compelled to buy them, even without space to put them. If they don't buy, they go to the back of the line. The same goes for cooling and energy supplies. This is called the bullwhip effect. It explains extreme spending while few projects make progress. This is a widespread issue. To highlight it, 2 fully fit-out data centers near NVIDIA's headquarters in Santa Clara, California, sit completely offline. They are waiting for local utilities to catch up. At the moment, NVIDIA benefits greatly from this. They can sell chips immediately, even if they sit in a warehouse for months. It's a dangerous game. A small demand correction causes a massive oversupply. But for now, it's been incredibly lucrative. Except that assumption is starting to strain. NVIDIA's annual reporting showed record sales and profit, but other numbers caught eyes. Inventory more than doubled from the year before and quadrupled from 2024. If NVIDIA struggles to keep up with demand, there shouldn't be a reason to sit on so much product. This suggests it's getting harder to move chips, or NVIDIA is facing the same supply chain problems upstream. They are getting as much supply as possible with confidence they can eventually sell it. Ironically, an LLM market algorithm found this disconnect first, alongside the trend of customers taking longer to pay receivables. The power issue was already a major problem. Now there's the energy issue on top of that. When facilities are fully operational, they draw a lot of power. Power over time is energy. Energy has become very expensive, thanks largely to these very same data centers. The war in Ukraine poured fuel on the fire, or rather did the opposite of that. Higher energy prices cut into the viability of running these centers and the cash burn rates associated with them. Most data centers get energy directly from the grid. They'll pay more money and wait longer for capacity. Newer centers use natural gas turbine generators. Natural gas has just doubled in price, doubling the largest line item in ongoing expenses. It's not great. It gets much worse when considering the third major problem facing NVIDIA. How long are these chips expected to last? About 6 months ago, we highlighted the problem of CapEx going toward cutting-edge chips. Chips depreciate extremely quickly as newer models come out. 4 months later, Michael Burry of Big Short fame and other investors said effectively the same thing. The industry standard among big tech is to depreciate GPUs over 6 years. In reality, they're lucky to stay viable for 3 years. This accounting makes expenses look better than they really are. Stretching out depreciation makes profits look better for the companies that make up most of NVIDIA's demand. In a confusing rebuttal, NVIDIA defended their own accounting practices, which wasn't the accusation in the first place. NVIDIA doesn't have many hard assets. It is a chip designer. Most hardware is manufactured by suppliers like TSMC. Nobody cared about their depreciation schedules. The point was about Microsoft, Oracle, and Meta. More honest accounting would make their profits look worse, which may reduce investor hype, and ultimately the demand for more GPUs. The supply bottlenecks and higher energy prices make this problem much worse. If NVIDIA releases a new flagship AI GPU every year, everything before it becomes obsolete. It becomes harder to justify purchasing pallets of current chips in advance. By the time the data center comes online, the chips might be irrelevant. On the other end, depreciation of chips in service gets worse as energy prices rise. If energy is cheap, it's worth running older hardware, but as prices increase, margins are squeezed. It costs more to run the server in energy inputs alone than it can be rented out for. Multi-million-dollar racks of last year's hardware become e-waste. The market can stay irrational longer than naysayers can stay solvent. Even if the business case makes no sense, it stays in motion as long as investors are happy to put money in. But even that might be starting to change. For the last 4 years, private credit companies have been major financing partners on big data center projects. They are now facing their own industry-wide problems, which makes it much harder to maintain the supply of easy financing.